So I don't know how many of the actors might be joining us, but here comes Roz, our wonderful director. Thank you. Bravo, well done. Yes. Yes. So normally at these discussions, I would start by asking you a question, but our time is kind of short, and so I think maybe we should just open it immediately to the crowd, if that's all right with you.
Absolutely.
What questions do you all have on your minds? I put you on the spot. You were expecting to hear us pontificate. Oh, wonderful performance. Bravo, Shayvawn. All right. Yes, sir, right here in the front row.
I wonder, how many rehearsals did you have? What was the process? Because everybody seemed really polished, and this is not a familiar play in the canon, right? So I'd love to hear more about what
Sure. The question is how many rehearsals and the process. And I can tell you what I know, and then maybe I'll throw it to Roz. Hey, bravo, Amir. Okay, thank you so much. Amir had the benefit of having two rehearsals, one 12 years ago and one today. Because this is his second time doing this play for us, which we're thrilled. But everyone else had one rehearsal. It was 5 hours today. And Roz, I know you had some time to prepare over there.
Yeah. We spent for the last couple of months, me and Omar spent time over the script, cutting it down, really figuring out what is the story we specifically wanted to tell, what the words we had. But yeah, we got here at 12 today. Well, some of us at 12:15. And then we worked until now.
Yeah. So that's. But you know, great actors can do this. But
Absolutely.
yes, sir.
When did you all discover how funny the play was? Because I love the way you did it. It was actually, but very serious, very moving. I didn't tear at one point, but I also was laughing a lot. Does that happen while you were rehearsing? When did you realize this play is actually pretty much a comedy with serious moments?
Yeah.
First of all, I learned this in like acting school, like in college. Any drama, I look for the comedy, always. And any comedy, I look for the drama, the heart. That's just like instinctively, there's always. But 13 years ago, when I did a reading of this play with Red Bull, the first paragraph that Salamini's reads describing him, I was like, oh, let's go. Like it was like describing him as the man queen and this and that. And I was like, oh, I started off, I was like, oh, he's a fop. And then when I read every argument, it's all about love to a fault. It felt quite clearly to me satirical but in a beautiful sense. So the first page, I was like, this is going to be, let me just, whatever I can, maybe to a fault, probably some, if we had rehearsed, I feel like I'd probably like, reel it in. But we didn't really have, like, we had one day, but, thank you always.
Yeah, I think for me it was like the first sassy one-liner that I was like, oh yeah, we need to. I mean, I think in a lot of classical pieces what's exciting is to bring the audience up with the laughter so that we can then undercut them with the tragedy at the end. Because if it's just tragedy from the first moment, then you start to become numb to it about an hour in. So to really save for the tragedy, you need to have people laugh.
I think one key moment today was your line when you said at the beginning, "Why do I love this man?" And we all bursted on laughter, and then I think the whole tone of the rehearsal changed when you said that, and it just dawned on all. That was a key moment.
But I agree, and the way you delivered it was key to that, because one could have made a different choice and not allowed for laughter. So that was that something the two of you spoke about in rehearsal today, or that was instinctual for you?
It was instinctual, but also given permission by that first monologue, and also by Amir's approach from the beginning. So
that's great. That's great. Thank you. Yes?
I'm curious, how much does Byron add to the story, the basic story, the love story, part of the original classical theme?
Good question. No, it's not. That's all creative license there. And he personally was in Italy at the time and had a very young lover at the time, and she influenced his writing of this a lot. So he found a historical source, the Roman Diodorus, he was intrigued by the story. He based the story on what he read by Diodorus, but he added that entire love plot. Of course, Mira being a Greek, Byron loves Greece. Byron died in Greece. Byron is a hero of Greece today. That's all his creative license.
And you said we know now that the Assyrians weren't really sun worshippers, right? Was that another part of it?
That's right. So he took a lot of creative liberties and was not always historically accurate with what he was writing. No, he wasn't.
Right.
Yeah.
I have a question about that, actually.
Go ahead.
Would you say that's because this was supposed to be a closet piece, or do you think that's also in his like proper plays for the theater too?
Huge,
Or both. Yeah.
huge question. Quick answer. He had already, a couple of his dramas had already, one of his dramas had actually gone to the stage while he was in Italy, and it got a terrible reception. My colleagues here actually know a lot more about this than me, but basically he got a terrible reception, and one can believe that he was writing this to prove them wrong. I mean, that's what I want to believe. I think there's there's a lot of dramaturgical fire to this play that we saw tonight. And I think that he was definitely responding to what was going on back in England with that production.
Other questions? Yes.
How hard was it to learn Old English?
How hard was it to learn Old English and to speak it? Well, interesting question. I mean, you didn't really have. How hard was it to speak it today? Luckily you didn't have to learn like a different language completely. But new pronunciations.
And there was a lot of pronunciations and words that aren't used today. We would all stop and start in rehearsal and make sure we all. But I worked with someone before today just to make sure I know every word and every sentence of what I'm saying. And I'll have like big notes. There's like paragraphs that are really like dense and so forth. So if I can like know the argument and clear and actually trust the words and let them fly, they guide you. I mean, like it is in pentameter. So if you've done Shakespeare, it's a little more facile. But there's like a thing, an act on the line, not the play needs to keep going. We need to sort of make discoveries. And he also had a great note to hit some of the words of the ideas, the big ideas, because that grounds us as in our current ear, our current American English ear of like, oh, we're talking about this, and we can't get everything. There were like a couple ideas where I was like, I think I got the gist of that, but like with very little rehearsal time and so forth. But like the main thing I did in my own rehearsal before coming in today was just to make sure I understood everything and then ride the pace of the play. And also there's a thing in Shakespeare, I know this is Byron, it's different, but to keep it lifted, to keep the ball in the air, we get the idea, you catch on, like you fall off the train, you catch back on the train, but if you leave the train and you try to parcel it out, the play sinks, the ideas sink, and so that's just my thought on that. Good question.
And Byron is super influenced by Shakespeare. Yeah. Like, he went to see a production of Antony and Cleopatra and then wrote this play like a year or two after.
Makes sense.
I really feel that.
Yeah.
What you did not see were the body convulsions and contortions and cursing that I had during rehearsal.
Oh, yeah.
Because it is so, I was like, like the language is so chewy. And so you have to work it and you have to practice and you have to just keep going at it. But it's completely accessible and completely doable if you are interested in conquering Old English and learning Old English.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I want to add to that one thing. The one thing that was particularly challenging, though, about like having a rehearsal is I would have liked to have lifted my eyes more and been more with the audience. And we would hug and so forth. You can usually kind of pick up things in readings, but we were like, you like if you pick up your eye too much, you lost your place, especially in the long thing. So that in itself was a technique of doing a reading of a piece like this and so forth.
Because you feel the passion underneath all of it. It's such poetic, beautiful language that you want to just sprint and run with it, because that's when it feels the best, when you do have it in your bones and you don't have to think about the line at all. But so I felt that as well today.
Yeah.
Obnoxious scholarly clarification. So it's not technically Old English,
Yes,
but
yes.
it's actually modern English. But of course, Shakespeare. Byron is drawing on the early modern period, which is Shakespeare and that. So, but believe it or not, it's actually modern English that this is drawing upon.
Great. We probably have time for 2 or 3 more questions. So if they're burning on your tongue, bring them forth now.
What was your favorite scene? Like, what was what do you think really worked the best? You both, I guess, Sardanapalus and Miranda, your scenes together were amazing, but all of you, the director, what do you think worked the best? Where was the play really singing for you?
I really love that opening intro between you and Salamines when he's first bringing the issue to you, because you're really seeing the first real obstacle that is Sardanapalus in this play.
We call them sardines from now on.
Two canned fish in this
Yeah.
play. Yep. And they're sort of like tit for tat in the battle of ideas, which is kind of like Shayvawn almost in that way. That's sort of like one-upping. Thought the play really sung there.
But that sequence where it's you and then the wife, Zarina. I mean, that sequence, and then you come back. That's a pretty awesome sequence.
If you've ever revisited a play, it's very interesting, or when you've done a play or seen a play, it's very interesting when you look back what etched in your memory. Like you can't always know it when it happens, but what I do remember from when we did it last time was I remember the opening, like you said, the introduction, the arguments, and just starting with this giant, larger-than-life, outlandish, very good, cogent points about love and do no harm, but also at this cogent and foolish, the balance of that. So I quite remember that, and I quite remember trying on the tunic and being fanciful before war. And then I completely remembered the dream. When he was describing the dream and how it I just remember that being really sort of, and the language guided me on that. That's don't just ride the language, it tells you where and what to do. And so those three scenes, and also the Zarina conflict, I think it's a really great, I don't want to call it a device, but sort of saving Zarina for this one sort of apex scene at the end and full history and so forth. I think that reveals a lot about him and her.
Yeah, Roz, when we called you and said, hey, why don't direct a reading for play, and you read it for the first time, what struck you about it? Why did you say yes is my real question.
Yeah, what really caught me was Sardanapalus' atheism, sort of in a play written in the mid-1800s, that he was actively going against his society and their sort of idea of ancestor worship and saying, no, this is not it. This is not what we should be. And so because of that, I think one of my favorite soliloquies or speeches of Sardanapalus is the wine speech, where he says, people don't remember people for wars, they remember people for wine. And I think that's so prescient and so funny and interesting, because I mean, it kind of is true, in a lot of ways. It's what makes you legendary is cake and baguettes and stuff, and things that make people happy, not things that cause bloodshed. Yeah.
And yet this is I agree with you. And yet this is the thing that reinforces how out of touch he is, right? Because his whole kingdom is religious, right? Clearly. And he's just so out of touch and cares to make no effort to understand his people.
Yeah.
So this is
it's ultimately
further
his downfall, but yeah,
Absolutely.
That's what makes it so interesting.
Absolutely.
Oh, okay, so right here.
Yes, and that's also the closet trauma aspect of the actors with directing point of view. Would it have been easier in some ways if it were more fully staged, if you're in costume? I know you decided to make light use of props, but if you could speak to that.
Yeah, I think as and I think you said this, is it was only a closet drama because Byron didn't have the technology or the things to make it how he wanted in his brain. But if he were alive today, it would be on Broadway, right? We would be able to make that fire at the end. So I wanted to use a couple of props. The ones that I found were the most important: the flower crown, the mirror, really having the mirror in the hand. I don't know, made him feel a little bit more vain than sort of just putting the mirror out there in that sort of place. And so that was just to hint at that idea that I think it would be a really amazing play on the production. If anyone is out there,
It's eminently
fund the
stageable.
production.
I mean, that's the thing. It's clearly yes, sir. You had your hand, and then over here, and I think that'll be our last one.
Yeah, have you guys done other closet dramas like this that we've never been to before? And if not, do you think they have a future?
Well, Omar and I, we can speak to that a little bit together. I think we did, for 5 years in a row, we did a series of readings of plays that were basically, I think they were almost all closet dramas, plays from the Romantics era. And let's see if we can remember them. There was this one, there was Manfred, there was the Cenci, there was Frances Burney's The Woman Hater,
Very good.
and there was one more. So it's Prometheus Unbound. Thank you. Yes, we read all of those, and they were all successful to varying degrees. And I don't remember any of them going, "Oh boy, that should never be done on stage." But some of them felt more stage worthy. Oop, that's my alarm telling me we're almost out of time. So some of them felt more stage worthy than others. Like I think The Woman Hater is really very stage worthy, and so is this. But yeah.
Prometheus Unbound was probably the most challenging one. After Act 2, most people left the room.
Yeah.
And I think it was because maybe the way Shelley creates, that heightened end of the act, people actually thought that it was over, right?
Yes.
They didn't know there was
That's
two more
right.
acts.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Almost half the audience left. That's right.
What a shame.
Maybe that one. You had one last quick question over here, Ben. Then.
Just in reading the notes, I noticed there were different iterations of this over the years. Was this the entire original script, or did you have to edit or choose any choices?
Yeah, we did. A lot of our process before today was cutting it down. Mostly because, when it is a closet drama, you can read it at your own pace. But we don't want to trap people here for 3.5 hours. So, and there's just some stuff. And I think when you're doing a classical piece, the reason that classical pieces are so amazing is they contain so much. But when you're making a production, you have to choose of that sort of buffet of things, 2 or 3 things that you want to focus on and you want the audience to leave with. And that's what cutting it down helps.
Yeah. Well, thank you all for coming tonight. Thank you, everybody here. Thank you. Bravo.
Can I just take an announcement?
Yes. And thank you online.